This is a brief history of B&H, everyone's favorite photo and video store. The year was 1973. The Mets went to the World Series. The first cell phone call was made. And Bleamy and Herman opened a specialty photography shop at 17 Warren Street, New York City. They had a simple philosophy.
Be honest, treat people right, and they will come back.
Thanks, Irving. Also, free candy. And it worked. Over the next 20 years, we expanded and moved to West 17th Street, then 34th Street and 9th Avenue, and added more products. Lighting, binoculars, telescopes, audio, video, tripods, computers, printers, mobile, televisions, projectors, drones, and even more free candy. Now it's 3 stories and over 400,000 products and over 1,000 employees. We take millions of orders online and ship to 179 countries and counting. You can talk to us in person, on the phone,
B&H, how can I help you?
Or online. Check out our checkout baskets. Also check out our checkout numbers. Also check out the flare on Marae's vest. And everyone's favorite part, our conveyor belt.
The benefit of the conveyor belt is you don't have to worry about the product or schlep it around anymore until checkout.
Nice. These are the owners. They still come to work every day. They're around here somewhere. Anyway, this is Jeanette. Oh, sorry, she's busy. This is our warehouse. This is Yakov and Levy fighting over lighting kits. B&H is not a chain. B&H is open every day, except Saturdays, of course. Now you know almost the whole story. We are B&H.
Oh, that's better. Howdy. I've just been doing some work and starting off this new year, the 2021, trying to figure out better ways, more efficient ways to do what we do. It's no secret that it's been difficult to make a living as an artist this year. You've supported us, you bought albums, you bought t-shirts, you bought calendars to support the Kraken. I don't make that money, but the Kraken does. And we all need venues when we're able to play live again. So you've been very supportive. But the question that you ask me most is how best to support you. So like when CDs were fading and everybody was listening to music on iTunes or Spotify or Apple Music, iTunes became Apple Music, whatever. But as people started listening on different formats, they said, well, which one do you make the most money from? And so we did a little research, said, well, when you stream it from, YouTube, this much money from Spotify. Really, it's so little that I don't care. I just want you to hear the music however is most convenient for you to hear the music. And I use Spotify and I use YouTube. I use all those things too. So that's great. That's a great way to support us, is just to listen to our music however you can. But of course, if you buy a record, CDs, the audio quality is so incredible. If you still have a CD player, they're beautiful. They sound amazing. Of course, vinyl has its own fans, all those things. And then when we got stuck in the pandemic, we got stuck live streaming. The question was like, how best to support you? PayPal or Venmo, or do we send you Facebook stars? And so just so you know, I've been through all these things. Facebook stars takes 30%. So if you give us $10 during a show, you send us 1,000 stars. Facebook gets $3 and we get 7. I'm glad you're sending stars. I'm glad you're doing anything. You're supporting us. But just so you know, 30% of that money goes to Facebook, who probably needs it less than we do, right? So if you're a member on YouTube, and we've created a membership level on YouTube, but now I'm realizing that also takes 30%. So 30% of that membership money, you give us $100 a month, $30 goes to YouTube and $70 goes to us. So that's not very efficient. If you want to support us as artists, you don't necessarily want to support YouTube. Maybe you already support YouTube. You subscribe. You have a premium membership to YouTube. And now you're going to pay us for our channel too, but you're also paying a chunk of what you pay us to YouTube. It doesn't seem like a very efficient use of your money, right? So there are subscription plans. Like Patreon is great, very artist friendly, very low percentages, but all subscription plans usually require some new exclusive work to be produced. You're expected to produce new work for your patrons, meaning one, fans who can't afford to support you that way don't get that content. And two, artists will reach fewer patrons because that work is exclusive. It's only being shared with this small group that already supports the artist. There's no way for new people to discover that artist through that work. So here is our answer to this conundrum. Through our website, we can create a subscription service, and that's what we've done. It's just called Become a Patron. You choose a level to support us monthly. We created a $5, $10, $20, $50, $100, all those things. You choose how much you want to support us with, and we keep creating, fueled by this dependable income. So we can commit to bigger, bolder projects if we can predict our income the way we could when we were touring. We could look ahead 3 months, 6 months, a year, and predict somewhat. There's always variables, but we could somewhat predict how much income we were going to make, so we could value our projects. We could decide how much money we were going to spend making this video, making this album, producing this book, producing this visual artwork. So we don't have that right now, and what I want to do is create that. So we can record music, we can make videos, we can write books. I can write books. I would love to write books, and I haven't really had the time to write books because I'm always chasing the tips. I don't know what the tips are going to be that week, so I always feel like I have to put more work into it. So this regular source of income would help us to have more space to create the stuff, which is why you come to us in the first place. That's why you're watching this, because you're a fan and you follow me, and here I am talking to you about how best to do it. So we'll share it all, not just with you, but we'll share it with the whole world thanks to you. How do you choose a level? Well, let's say you give $20 a month or $20 a week on Wednesday nights. You watch our show on Wednesday night and you always give us $20 regularly. You tip me a couple times for lunch with Bird, and you send a little extra money along for Christmas. Thanks for that. It came in super handy this year. So you could say $100 a month would cover that for you, and you can just create an account on our website and start your own subscription service where you know that you don't have to worry about the tips on Wednesday night. You just watch the show. You've already tipped us. Whatever comes out, whatever work of art we produce, you know that you're behind that. And that
This is a story about a magical place where everything's amazing, especially the people. We can tell you everything there is to know about over 400,000 different pieces of gear. Tell them, Lenny.
And we have a 17 millimeter, 24 millimeter, 45 millimeter.
He does this all day. We'll help you find the right thing, which is often not the most expensive.
The A9 is great, but I think the 6500 is better for what you need.
That's pretty rare. And just like you, we love to explore and share our passion, because we're creators as well. Israel and Jake like to make videos for the web. Oh, I love it when he does this. Oh, by the way, if you can't meet us in person, you can always chat with us online. Think of us as collaborators, production partners, problem solvers. This is Greg. He's made 5 gold records.
You can play your voice high.
And here's Jay, the king of the candids. Wait, I'm not ready, Jay. Sometimes we geek out and help each other, but mostly we're here to help you. Like Lenny, who's still going, because there's a lot to say when you're making some pretty important decisions. So now you've met 16 of over 1,000 employees. 16 reasons our customers like to do business with people, not algorithms. We are B&H.
B&H, how can I help you?
B&H is here.
What type of photography do you do?
It's actually a very good choice.
I've got a great mic that'll work perfect for that.
Oh, cool. You're setting up a live stream DJ set? Okay, I can help you with that.
Happy to walk you through it.
So click, chat, or call us. As always, we're here to help with all your plans, projects, inklings, and endeavors.
I didn't say anything about not wearing a hat. That's pretty natural.
My name is Rob Hinkal. I'm a singer-songwriter from Baltimore, Maryland, and you probably don't know me, but you might know my band, Iliami, or my partner, Heather Aubrey Lloyd. And during COVID, I have found myself pivoting into an awful lot of live streaming, and I'm the hands operating behind a whole lot of different programs and series right now. And so I'm really flattered that Ethan and Nerfa 365 invited me to be on the camera moderating this panel on the topic of streaming, recording audio, recording video, whatever we get up to. I've used that countdown in one place. I love that countdown. It's like, I'm ready for it. I've only used it for something I run called Beyonce Mass, but you can ask me about that later. Anyways, next week, before we jump into our program, we've got a mental health program coming up with Nerfa 365, and Ethan's like, bam, where's that flyer? Well, I'll get it. Next week, we've got a program about mental health, and then after that, we've got a presenters peer group, and then a performers peer group. The performers peer group is something that I was very grateful to be able to be part of a couple of weeks ago, I believe, is the same thing. And it was really it was a really delicious thing. It was much more powerful than I was expecting it to be. It was really important for me to reconnect with some other artists. So please, there's email performers@nerfa.org. There's information on all those things probably at nerfa.org if you want to know more about them. Get involved with those. I can't stress enough how important it has been to just be, connected with people. I run a regular open mic on Monday nights, and during that, I have come at this from all sorts of angles. They're trying to get people up and running. Jimmy Stewart is out there. That's wonderful. He's someone who, we fight with the cameras and we fight with the interfaces. We try to get online. And I've attacked this from a lot of different angles. And I'm really glad that Ethan has paired me with a couple of people who know it so much deeper and so much broader than I. I've got two knowledgeable brains and their accompanying bodies in the form of Christian Domecq of B&H Photo. Oh, he's like, I was going to go the other way. And Ryan Fitzsimmons, I guess originally of Fishman, but I know you from the AS220 songwriter series years and years and years ago. You gave me a song prompt. I still play that song today. B&H Photo. I just bought another one of these little guys from you just a couple weeks ago. So thank you very, very much for that.
Thank you.
Before we even really get into the meat of all of this, can you tell me, I mean, the world changed, like 10 months ago. How has that changed your individual, what you do? What's your real world applications in the new world? Christian, let me start with you. I don't know you at all.
Oh, well, yeah, everything's kind of changed, hasn't it? My apartment and actually in my grandfather's house right now is turned into a mobile work from home studio, if you will. Sometimes studio, sometimes it's just my office cubicle. You never know. It depends on how much stuff I leave around on my table. Huh? But it really has, we've had to figure out whole new ways to connect with not just our audience and our customers, but each other. On the same team. And I think I think most people have learned a lot in a short amount of time what works and what doesn't work. I think everyone's learned that we miss our human camaraderie quite a bit, and the camera doesn't necessarily do it justice, but it's a little bit safer right now, and it's what we're stuck with, so we're making the best.
Yeah, we are making the best of it. Ryan, so I know you've been a lot more hands-on and one-to-one, I think, right, with individuals getting them up and running. So what is, in quick form, what have you been doing?
Quick form is hard for me, as you know, but it's been interesting because before the pandemic, through my work with Fishman, where I'm the marketing manager, aside from my regular, guy with a guitar thing that I've been doing forever, we had been live streaming, and so I had to figure out the nuts and bolts of live streaming, and then suddenly the world shut down, and all of a sudden, all of my friends, some of whom are in the chat right now, were like, hey, I can't gig anymore unless I do it virtually. How do I do this? And so I ended up jumping in and helping out people that way, just given the experience I had. But of course, that experience didn't mean a whole heck of a lot. It was the Wild West, right? It still is. Like, we're all making do with a whole lot of gear that was not intended for this purpose to begin with.
I think you specified chicken wire and duct tape, right?
Yes, chicken wire and duct tape. Yes, without a doubt. And so, that's sort of what we're doing. We're all appropriating things that originally were never designed for this purpose. And obviously, things are coming quite along. Just with products, and companies out there are going to meet the demand. And before long, we'll all have the super widget that we just sit on the table and it'll do everything for us. But in hands-on, I've been actually contracted by a bunch of artists and things to go in and do it. So it's been nice to have something else to do when you can't gig,
you
at least in the normal way that.
You whirlwinded through a bunch of name dropping the other day, and I was just like, whoa, you're just doing amazing things. So I guess, why are we even doing this? We're talking about streaming. We're talking about maybe recording from home. I think some people are actually hitting it right on the head as the comments come in. We're trying to remain connected with our fans. We're trying to stay connected with people. Do you think this is here to stay, right? I mean, this conversation isn't something that's moot in 3 months, right?
No, I think it's here. I think it's. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ryan.
No, go ahead, Christian. It's cool.
Yeah, I believe it's here to stay for multiple reasons. I think once we get over the learning curve, and people who may not have thought about streaming from their own home are now adopting it, and it's become more commonplace. And as soon as B&H gets the magic widget back in stock for you guys to do all the above, I think we'll find it being a better form of advertising and self-promotion and collaboration, to be honest. And so it'll be another tool in the toolbox. I don't think it's going to pass up, live performances. I hope not, but you might be able to reach a different audience and possibly a little bit easier to promote a new song or a new piece of hardware or whatever it is that we wouldn't have previous.
I mean,
For
when
sure.
I was chatting with Ryan, you were talking about how this even augmented like your bar gigs and whatnot. They made it a lot more, even before COVID. This was something that allowed you to, stay sane with some of the bread and butter gigs that we do.
Without a doubt. I had played around with just streaming with a phone before COVID, where I would just throw the phone up. I hooked it up to my PA system and then just let it go. And then, I could kind of monitor the comments as they were coming in, which is really great when you're in a bar and, you're just a potted plant that makes noise and, people are sort of moving around. You could actually had some people out there that cared. And with that, as things come along with 5G and better wireless connections and everything, it is very conceivable that we could stream all of our gigs or whatever gigs we want, gigs where we're going to be playing in front of real people anyway. And, that could be really cool. It could be another source of income in this highly lucrative game of music, right?
Did you say the highly lucrative world of folk music? Is that where you were going?
Folk music, you make tens of dollars doing this.
Well, working backwards, we're going out and we're reaching our audiences, and we've got the platforms. We've got YouTube and Facebook and Twitch and whatever else we're going to, Mandolin and all these cool things. Then you have your internet connection. You work backwards a little bit further. We got whatever broadcasting software we're working with. And then the interfaces and the cameras and everything like that. We'll talk about in a sec. But I think something that's on display with us right now is often the thing that we skip over right before people even go to bhphotovideo.com and order the brand new widget or whatever it is, the perfect widget. Thanks, Ethan.
Nice, Ethan.
Where are we going to put this stuff? I mean, even looking at the three of us, we have approaches to where we've lit things, how the room sounds, all this stuff. That's something that we often skip over. Christian, you want to talk a little bit about even what you set up in your space right now?
Sure. This is how not to do it. No, this is no, I'm kidding. Right now I have a single light source and it's fine. You can see I'm fairly well illuminated. I'm in a place that I don't normally live, so this was kind of a last minute grab some gear and off I went. And so this is not an ideal. I would not, if this is my home and I'm staying here forever and ever, okay, I'm gonna change things. I would have a different background than the couch over there. But what I have done is not relied on the standard camera inside my laptop. For instance, I'm using a mirrorless camera from Fuji, an X-T3 right now, and some of their software to make it into a webcam. And I have a singular light off the side to illuminate myself, and I can play with the colors and get a little creative. But this is about as basic a kit as I'd want someone to really start off with. And frankly, I'm a little bit behind the curveball, especially talking to a bunch of musicians on the audio side. And I'm reliant on my headset here because, again, it's what I had with me and off I went. I would rather have a microphone like you guys are using, which I think make the voice sound a little bit better and more professional. But this is kind of your start off kit here, right?
But you're still popping out of your background. You've taken time to light yourself. The background is dark. Is that just a desk lamp, or you got something more important there?
No, this is a LED panel from a company called Luxley. That's Luxli, and it's really nice. It's about 6 inches wide. They have several different variants, from really tiny, fit on top of your mirrorless camera, to ginormous ones that require a large stand. and they have a full range of color control. I can turn this purple or blue or red. I can do lighting effects. 2 of them I could actually run in tandem. I can run an app and adjust all my colors. So kind of what Ryan has in the background there, a very plain background. You can illuminate that with any colors you want and make it pop. And that's a real neat trick that people are using in limited space. Not everyone has nice lights in the background like you do, Rob. Some of us
my Christmas lights from Amazon. Yeah.
Love Christmas lights.
Actually,
I love Christmas.
Well, they give you a sense of depth, and there's something going on back there, even if you can't see quite what it is. Now, Ryan, rather than talk about your plain background, let's talk about your neutral background. You're like actually in a studio
Thank
space,
you. Neutral is a way better term.
Tell me about how you arrange a space for streaming, or what you have to think about when you set up a space.
Yeah, everybody's space is different. So I'm always just thinking, I'm looking at the space that you're coming into and making the best out of it. And this right now, I'm in a studio for a company called Ecamm Live in Amesbury, and they have incredible software, and they let me use the space, but it's fairly new. And so I sort of came in here and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? There's this neutral wall over there. I'll set up in front of that. They had some lighting here that I'm using. But I think the biggest thing is, look at your space, look at the space available to you, and then think about what you can do from there. Neutral backgrounds are great. If you can light things up in the background, that's good. You want to be in your shot, so keep in mind that a background is a background. It's not a stage, and you don't want to, you don't want to be small as opposed to your background. I think neutral backgrounds are always a very good way to go myself. And then, I've got a couple of key lights here. I can show you that stuff in a minute. Just
define key light.
These are fairly large LED panels, not super large, but and I've got them set off at about a 45-degree angle and a little up from me. And then, in the background here, there's an LED that's lighting up the shadows. You can do all kinds of good stuff, but trying to get even, and I could do a better job than I'm doing right now. Even soft light is always what you're going for. You can diffuse light with pillows and things like that. There's all kinds of cool things that you can do with whatever you have. But the biggest thing is to sort of look at your space, try to make it as simple as possible. And, starting with a neutral background is always a good idea, a good way to go. That makes sense? Or go and get a bunch of Christmas lights.
There we go. Okay.
And
that's what I wanted to see.
Hang them up in the back. No, I love
Oh, hello.
Oh,
Talk
look
to me
at
about
that.
Standard 3-point lighting. I know that we're getting a couple of questions about lighting coming in. Although when I'm seeing Carl Rubino saying I have a lighting issue, I use an 18-inch rim light and stream to Facebook Live on an iPhone 7 Plus. The lighting changes on Facebook. It's probably, exactly what you're saying. The light's consistent. It's your exposure that's changing back and forth. I think in a sec I wanted to talk about phones because everyone's got a smartphone and people who are using them as their camera and whatnot. I shouldn't leap around, but do we have any easy ways of locking down our phones as exposure source? I mean, that is a problem I see an awful lot. Yeah. Or is it just light it enough?
I think they're depending on the phone you use, right? iPhones, you can usually poke at a scene on your screen, hold your finger there for a couple of seconds, and it goes into a exposure lock mode. And so that's something
that's probably the key word is exposure lock.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah, and most phones will have that, I would think, nowadays. But look for that on your whatever brand or model you're utilizing. An external light is extra helpful on phones. A lot of the manufacturers have little ring lights. You can stick the phone inside and get that beautiful beauty dish look on your face if you're just doing a talking head kind of thing. And so there's definitely options.
Kavusi out there is an alarmingly attractive man. So absolutely ring lights for him. It does beautiful video work actually. So we almost all have smartphones. My experience is that it's a lot easier with a computer at the hub. But Christian, I think when we talked about this initially, you'd said that there were a couple of specific upgrades that you would operate with if you were if you happened to be using a smartphone as the center of your
Sure. if I'm starting with a smartphone setup, you want to mount that smartphone and you want to put it pretty much eye level, I would think. There's a number of brands out there that have stands and little flexible mounts and pretty much any size phone that you're utilizing. Again, that light is a good option, and some kind of external microphone to help augment the audio capability of an iPhone 5 or 6, right? And that's kind of it in the very basic sense. There are some adapters available for iOS devices, and I'm sure other manufacturers, USB-C to go into Ethernet, which is something that you're going to want to consider instead of relying on Wi-Fi all the time. But those 4 things, I think, would get a person started.
I have this wonderful plan, and yet I find myself thinking, we should actually mention internet connection right quick. I want to come to Ryan in a sec. Actually, Ryan, you can probably speak to this too, because you've been using phones as an additional camera for a computer, right?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes.
So yeah, how are you doing that?
There's a couple of ways of doing it. There's several pieces of software you can get out there that you can put the piece of software on your phone, or the app on your phone, and then the app on your computer, and then you connect it that way. Or you can go through your own Wi-Fi, but that does have its limitations, and I'll speak to that in a second. But a couple of them, there's a program called Camo that's good. There's a program called, probably the most common is Epoch Cam, which is now been co-opted by Elgato, so it must be good, because one of the big video companies are like, yes, we're going to put our name on that.
Co-opted has no negative connotation at all, right?
Yeah. No. So, but yeah, those things are, and the thing is, your phone is likely, when you're just trying to do the best with what you've got, your phone is likely the best camera that you've got. And it's usually much better than a laptop camera. I have I'm right now working with a 2018 MacBook Pro here, and this is my laptop camera. So, you can see there's a noted difference. That's a Sony mirrorless that we'll get to. Your phone is usually going to give you probably the best camera you have. So that's always a good place to start. And those pieces of software, when paired, with whatever you're going to use to stream, most of them will allow you to go directly, use it as a camera, and choose it as a camera in Facebook or YouTube if you want to go that direction, or you can use OBS. We'll get into that, I'm sure.
About internet connections, let's chat about that real quick, because I think we sort of jokingly said at the beginning, please go to speedtest.net, and if your return for your upload is less than 10 megabits per second, you may close this window now. Thank you. Yeah. Because, man, internet connection is key. Maximizing that.
So many people.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, so many people overlook that. There's 2 things that you really need if you're going to go live. One is screaming internet. You have to be able to get at least 11 megabytes up to go anywhere, and even that's borderline. You really want 20. You want to be able to, and you can go to speedtest.net and check it at any point. Speedtest.net is like, I live there. I'm looking at that all the time. Tonight, where I'm at, I'm working on 11, which is just borderline okay. I'm actually wireless, but. Another thing with internet that's a good workaround, get yourself an Ethernet cable and run it from your wireless modem or your cable modem into your computer if you can. Take wireless out of the equation, because no matter how great your mesh Wi-Fi is in your house, there's always going to be some weird ghost that goes through and causes glitches. And so if you can hardwire yourself, do it. Cable is cheap. You can buy it at B&H and or anywhere, and that's one of the most inexpensive ways you can upgrade your deal. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention is, now you have screaming internet, you have to have the processing power to handle it. Your 2010 MacBook is probably not going to work. It's, and that's the other thing. It's just your phone probably will. Your phone's got a lot of power, but trying to get old computers to do new tricks can be really, really difficult. And I spend a lot of time working with folks trying to find that delicate balance. So you want to try to get the most processing power you can within a budget. And I know that's hard, but there are ways to do it.
When you're maximizing your internet speed, also, before we wander too far off the idea of wiring things, and people are like, well, I'm on a phone, or my iPad doesn't have an Ethernet connection, or my new MacBook doesn't. Almost everything has some sort of dongle that you can go ahead and shove an Ethernet cable into. Those things exist. And then there are other ways to maximize your signal as well, whether it's, just asking your cat not to download cat videos on Netflix at the same time that you're webcasting, or even on the computer itself, make sure that Google Drive isn't, syncing at that moment. You can watch someone's signal and you'll watch it jerk and you'll be like, is your email checking right now? Or is any number of, cloud backup systems, they'll eat up your, especially Wi-Fi, and you'll see your computer chew on different things. So maximizing all those things, especially if there's anything marginal about your signal or your processing power, is really, really key. Now, this is sort of like, we've mentioned that, sometimes we have these things lying around. God knows I've wired in DSLRs and analog mixers and all sorts of things that just were never meant to talk to each other. Ryan, I think you'd mentioned a couple of specific things, but then, oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. Let me check my notes. I'll let Christian field this one. If you're truly starting from scratch, you need a camera, you need a mic, and a way to get those into an internet connection. What do you have, like a baseline recommendation for a starting rig? Possibly from bhvideo.com.
Sorry about that. Here, got some side noise here. So for like an audio interface, you're looking for, or just we need kind of the old above interface.
Yeah, an audio interface, a rough camera. I don't know that we can expect people to think about specific laptops, but the idea of a laptop being a nice. You mentioned an iPad even. Yeah. Talk to me about what you would do as just a starting point for even a mobile record, what you need right now.
Right. So, like I said, an iPad is, or an equivalent tablet is going to be the beginning point, and a lot of people already will have that in their possession. So, to augment what it can do, a light external mic of some kind. There's a lot that will go either USB-C for the new tablets, or sometimes a Lightning connector for the old iOS stuff. And there's a number of manufacturers out there, Rode and Ceramonic and things like that, make very inexpensive miniature shotgun mics that are not obtrusive and don't take much to connect, and off you go. A light of some kind or two. And yep, and there we go. Thank you, Ethan. You're the man.
You want to throw that wish list in the links, and just a note that they can buy any of that stuff for me. That'd be great.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do. By the way, I'm going to work with Ethan, and we're going to expand on this wish list, and we'll figure out a place where that can live for people. And if anyone has any questions along those lines as far as gear, definitely hit us up, and we'll make sure we answer them after the fact. But as you step up from an iPad or whatever it is, tablet wise, into something like a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, which many people already have in their possession. This is what I'm using now, a little mirrorless camera. A decent short range zoom, so you have a little bit of flexibility, maybe again with the light, again with the microphone. But now I have a little more flexibility. I can get a microphone that's going to sound a little bit better, and larger diaphragm microphones. And there's some complexity issues if you go from beyond USB mic sticking into the side to with the XLR connector, which a lot of us in the music industry are going to be familiar with. But now we have to consider how we're going to get that audio into the computer as well, right? And this is where a laptop is going to be, I think, your key point, and that's what Ryan was saying before. That's your central machine is going to be a laptop or a standard computer. Then I can have an interface to run one or multiple microphones if I'm sharing the space with somebody else. Right now I'm just been thinking of a single person in front of a single camera, but there's a lot of collaborative stuff going on out there, right? So maybe we want our bandmates in there. So maybe a dual microphone, 2 camera setup. So that's going to be, it's going to add some complexity, and we'll get there. I don't think we have to talk about that this moment. But now audio interfaces like the Focusrite Scarlett is a good way to go. And there's so many companies that are coming out with really good gear now, from beginning range all the way up to pro level. You know, Arturia has come out with a whole new lineup of audio interfaces and sound amazing. Zoom has a whole series of interfaces that I think 8, 12, and 20 inputs, so you can actually do your entire ensemble. Everyone can get mic'd up. It can record all the stems and run it as your interface to your computer. So there's a lot of flexibility out there for you. And then,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to ramble. And then there's lights. And there's
They don't moderate.
Yeah, and then there's moderate.
Yeah, I would see a lot of one of the wonderful things about this is, like, I think that anyone going back and viewing this, not just watching the video again, but there's a lot of comments coming back and forth of people. You know, we've all been doing this for 10 months. I have a guy who's a regular at my open mic, Dougie, who has been literally joining the open mic from his truck, and so, you know, he's got like 10 minutes in which the truck's being loaded, and he can sign on to the open mic that I run via Zoom. And he is using a Zoom, the new 8-channel, whatever, the one that looks like a spider. Using that as his interface, using the camera or using the phone as the camera. But the real choke point has, of course, been the internet connection. And I think that, you know, we've gotten everything right, and then all of a sudden that collapses. Has been very, very frustrating. He was asking specifically about the idea of like mobile setups, and unfortunately I think there's only so far you can go before you just hit that choke point.
I'll interject and say yes to a certain point. There are solutions out there for people who really want to be mobile. You want to do a live performance in the middle of a field somewhere, and all you have is cellular. There are actual products out there that can help you with that. It's a company called LiveView. They make a mobile system, has multiple dongles for different cellular networks. So you can have a Verizon and an AT&T, and it will split up to your signal, parse it out, and send little packets, and then you'll reconnect it at the other end, and you can run that direct to Facebook Live or Instagram or whatever your chosen platform is. And that's just one option. There's other companies out there, Teradek's making things like that too, and so there are options. They're not the most inexpensive options,
cheap, yeah.
But at least there are options. Yeah. And that's going to be a little bit better than just your iPhone out there in the field, I think.
I know we're drilling down maybe a little bit more detailed than we initially intended to, but I mean, I think we're all nerds here, and this is sort of where we live. Yeah. A point of clarity, two Zooms, Zoom. Yeah. There's two companies out there. Zoom is, of course, what everyone's thinking of as meeting software nowadays, but a very, very different company is Zoom that creates the hardware. And for years have been making these wonderful mobile solutions to recording, less mobile as well as guitar pedals and all sorts of different things. I have a multi-track recorder sitting here that also functions as an interface and whatever else, the old Zoom R24. What a magnificent device. But these Zoom H6s and H8s, the fact that these can run off of a couple of AA batteries or off your USB if that's an available option, and their built-in microphones are actually quite nice, and then you've got a number of quarter-inch or XLR inputs. I've been very, very impressed with those. And I'm so grateful.
And they work really.
Go ahead, Ryan.
The H6, those Zooms things, they actually work really great as interfaces as well, just to hook up to your laptop and use it as an interface. So they're really multifunctional. You can do a lot with one of those.
The new ones have even a Bluetooth connection to hook into your phone. Of course, that can bring in your own issues of latency and things like that. I'll see that they don't sync with your camera as well anymore.
Yeah.
We're talking almost about like eking everything we can out of what we do have. It's absolutely possible to go overkill with this. What can the tubes not handle? What can Facebook and YouTube not do? And when someone tries to sell you X, you're like, that's that's beyond what we can do right now. Any opinions or thoughts?
Ryan?
Oh, just as far as what you should stream on, I mean, boy, you can. You're pretty good at 1080 at the moment. I mean, I'm always a proponent of getting gear that will handle whatever the next thing is going to be, because you don't want your gear to be completely useless 2 years from now. But the truth of the matter is that 1080 at 30 frames per second is usually what most everything wants, if not 720. I believe for a while with Twitch, you had to have a certain level of following and whatnot to get up to 1080. So if you've got 1080 at 30 frames per second, you're good. If you're trying to stuff 4K down that hole, you're just going to create problems for yourself. So
we were just experimenting
it's something
with that,
that's
right?
worth considering. Yeah. We were absolutely.
Yeah, and on the audio side as well, I think Facebook and YouTube are capping out at 128 kbs stereo right now. Zoom introduced their music mode a couple months ago, which is 192, I think, or 196. I'm just making up numbers. But actually a little more detailed in the audio than you can get with some of the other streaming platforms. And then Twitch is a little bit higher, and then Vimeo is a whole nother animal. Although their live streaming is actually the same numbers, they'll then let you replace it with higher definition material, which is cool. But
yeah, that's cool.
I see some people talking about the Shure MV88 Plus. It's just stuff going by. I have a 51 sitting in front of me. The 88 is a really cool little stereo mic, which is unnerving in the stereo image, in that when a friend of mine was using one and his wife was pacing up and down the stairs and came down the stairs to call him, I thought my wife was coming down the stairs because I heard it in the headphones so accurately. It was really gorgeous. Wow. Sort of a surprising thing. We talked about, does this go away? I think we've probably got more things to talk about with streaming.
There's this
go ahead.
This comment right here that which just clarifying, if you can use a Zoom or a Tascam mobile recorder as an audio interface to plug into your computer for streaming to improve upon just playing straight into the computer mic. Absolutely. Yes, it does work. In fact, Greg Klima, who's in the stream, early on when we were setting up his rig, that's what we did with an old Zoom handy recorder. And that is, if you've got a handy recorder kicking around with a USB out, if you've got any audio gear with a USB out on it, chances are it's a simple interface. Chances are it'll improve the quality of your audio. Now, I will say that today, I was playing around with some different things here. I'm actually just going through like a very simple Mackie board and with an SM58, just because this might be something you have kicking around. You can get better quality audio a million different ways, but I'm a big fan of using what you've got first and then going from there.
Why don't we drill a little more specifically actually into specific interfaces for a moment, because that is the connection that's required to take what almost all of us as touring artists or home recording artists, or even people who have set up like really expansive home studios, at some point we come down to this little box that does the digital audio conversion into our computers or into our phones. Do you have any favorites? And what's a beginner box versus, a pro box? What are the differences? Christian, I'm going to throw it at you first, since you know.
All right,
yeah, Christian.
Yeah, sure. All right, I'll start. I like to use the kind of catch-all phrase, tell people pretty much like price items across different brands are going to yield like results. And that's not 100% always accurate, but it'll get you in the ballpark. If you see 3 or 4 audio interfaces that are rolling around the $200 mark, you're probably not going to see a huge change in the feature list or the quality necessarily. But as with everything, there's always something that's going to be a little bit better, right? And what does better mean? Better typically means it's going to solve a problem or provide you a solution that you need more inputs, for instance, or maybe you need cleaner analog to digital converters, or maybe you need a faster throughput. So it's not going to be USB, but it's going to be Lightning or something, or USB-C necessarily. So, again, better is subjective, as we all know. But, start off with look at the Focusrite series, the Scarlett, the 2i2, I think is what, we sell tons of those. And they're kitted with a lot of different products out there, specifically for podcasting and for, is there one right there? Exactly. So the 4i4, 2i2, these are outstanding devices. They do what they're supposed to do. They sound good. Doesn't take a master's degree to get connected, and you're off and running. Zoom, we're talking about, they have a whole number. The live tracks are nice. That's the one I was mentioning before, the L8 and the L12 and L20. You can get multiple 8, 12, or 20 inputs. That's overkill. Talking about overkill, that's probably overkill for most people. But if you want everyone to have, you have 5 or 6 singers and you want to mic all your instruments, maybe that is the way you want to go, right? You don't know. Arturia, they have a ton of new interfaces, and Mackie has mixers that have built-in ones, built-in USB to your computer, and really just pretty much any audio manufacturer now has their variant of some kind. So really, it's limited to your imagination, budget, and where you're going to put this thing on your desk.
Ryan, you got any favorites? The Focusrite is what I could set in front of me too.
Everybody seems to have a Focusrite for sure, even though I'm not using it currently, although I could switch over to the mic that has it. The Focusrite, any of the 2i2 is probably the most ubiquitous interface out there. It works really well. It does what it's supposed to. It's very simple to use, so that's a good one to go with. Again, and I'll do this too. If you have a Mackie mixer, I'm using this right here, which is a Pro FX with a USB out on the back of it, and that it gives you some advantages, although it doesn't give you multi-track audio. If you want to go into a home recording thing, which is a whole different deal, it does give you some effects and some EQ and things like that. But one thing to definitely not overlook, for sure, is USB mics. For people, when I say interface, if it's making your head spin, if you're like, oh no, like that sounds complicated. Well, it can be, although it doesn't have to be. USB mics, and I'm also not using this, but that's the Blue Yeti, and they can sound amazing. Here, I'll switch to it if you want to hear what it sounds like. They're just, a USB mic. So now I've gone over to the Yeti, and so you'll probably hear more of the room now. They have a figure 8 pattern, which is great if you're a musician because you can get your voice and your guitar. They do a lot of good things. There's some other good ones too. Audio-Technica makes a great one. It's the 2020 USB, I believe it's called.
Yep, that's right.
And that's another excellent large diaphragm. These are large diaphragm mics that just they sound excellent. They're easy. You plug them into a USB, you pick them, and you're done. You don't have to do anything else, and you've got really great sounding audio. Because the audio in your laptop, it's probably not going to be great. The audio in your phone is going to be better, but if you can upgrade to one of these, and a lot of these USB mics are in the $100 range, they really do make a big difference. And I'll take this opportunity to also say, and this is going to go on top of something Jonathan Berto, he says, if you can make yourself sound really good, your video it will look better. It's always, to me, I come from the perspective that start with sound, although, and then go from there. So if you can get yourself sounding as good as possible, your audience is going to thank you for it. It'll forgive a multitude of video problems, overexposure and everything else. If you sound awesome, keep in mind that most people, when they're watching a stream, are watching it on their phone. You're this big. So, but if it sounds really good, it's going to translate. Although they might be listening to it on their phone too. So then, what have you? But it is a very good thing to start there if you can.
And this isn't just operating as your microphone. This is operating as your entire audio interface to a certain extent. This is what you're plugging your headphones in, et cetera, et cetera. So the fact that a lot of that's happening on this microphone rather than on your old laptop can sometimes ease your burden on the processing a little bit. But more importantly, you're routing everything through one source and one output, it confuses things a lot less, whether it's the drivers that are going into Zoom, the meeting application, or StreamYard, or your recording software, or whatever else. The fact that this is also generally a higher resolution than whatever you're dealing with in your built-in laptop or desktop or whatever. They're just, plus this one's, you could use that as a hammer. It's kind of nuts. The Yetis or a lot of them have multi-patterns now as well. Like you can, what a lot of people just heard, I think, with the Yeti versus your SM58, that SM58 is of course right up in your face. And so we're getting that really nice, clean vocal sound. Whereas if you strummed a guitar right now, that'd be kind of like, off access. People wouldn't be hearing that right now. And that's where that Yeti, that wide diaphragm, that would come in really, really helpful. Oh, like that's fine. Never mind. What are they talking about?
Yeah, well, it sounds great, but seriously, it's hard to get. It's so hard to get a good mix with one microphone, and that's where, again, like the Yeti or any sort of USB mic that's a condenser is going to really help pick up both your instrument and your voice at the same time. And it's the easiest way to get a really great sound is just go.
Somebody just called me out on the fact that I'm gesturing with this microphone. This is an MV55 Shure. And what is it? That's the Shure MV51, 55. Somebody correct me.
Either will find it.
Either one will find it. Come on, man. I just forgot the name of it's an MV51. I'm sorry.
There you go.
And the MV51 is just, it's a kind of cool flexible thing. And all the companies are doing something similar to this, where it's got a built-in kickstand and that screws off so you can put it on a regular mic stand. And yeah, that's the beast. Now, the new one has a USB-C connection on the back, which is really wonderful because mine has the USB mini or micro, which is kind of a flimsy connector. So I'm really glad to see that they're kind of upgrading that because, man, that's
Plus,
been
that
scary.
looks so cool. I mean, come on, look at that thing. Who doesn't want to own that? It looks like, you can pretend you're Elvis. It's fantastic.
Well, I was going to say 21B, but okay.
Right?
Yeah. But I know it does, though. The thing is, if you're going to have stuff laying on your desk all the time, it helps when it looks cool. Anyway.
Yeah, it does. It absolutely
If you're going to sound good, you might as well look good as well, right?
Right.
So, okay, so we want to look good. That's more than just plugging a damn camera into your laptop or whatever. We now have to go into. Usually, there's some form of software that's coming between where you are and where you're going to. A lot of platforms, of course, have their built-in software, but I think a lot of people are asking about OBS or other things like that. Let's talk about that for a sec because that is a blind spot, and OBS is kind of intimidating software at first glance, at least.
It can be for sure,
Brian.
Yeah, no, I can talk about it. OBS, OBS essentially is a television studio for your computer, and it brings everything together. You can use it to control multiple cameras, multiple scenes, multiple audio sources. It brings it all together and lets you broadcast from there. OBS is awesome because it's free. You can go out and get it, and you can get this incredibly powerful software for free because it was developed open source. So all of these different great people out there in the world have run into problems with it, and they develop it together to have this software that is really powerful and free. The problem with really powerful and really free software is nobody's looking at it going, how do we make this good for the consumer? They're just thinking, how do we make it good? So it can be intimidating, and it is a little hard to get around, and a lot of people get stuck really quick with it. I've used it. I've seen it used for, it's certainly in the gaming world, which, by the way, if you have a friend that's a gamer and you want to know about streaming, talk to your friend that's a gamer. Also, if you need a powerful computer, ask your friend that's a gamer if they have one they're not using anymore. But I digress. The OBS sort of came out, is used for giant esports tournaments that 90,000 people are watching, and they engineer them with OBS. It's unbelievable. That said, if you look at, if you try to dive into it, it can be tough. There's great YouTube tutorials out there, but there are other programs. We're broadcasting right now from StreamYard, and Rob can talk about that at length. StreamYard is very great. It's very simple. It's easy to use. An OBS substitute. I'm actually broadcasting from their studio right now, but it's Ecamm is great if you're a Mac user. Ecamm it's much easier to use, much more Mac friendly, much just more friendly. Everything about it is a little bit easier. And then there's other great things out there. There's Streamlabs OBS, and there's Greg Klima and I were talking about Stream Effects last night, and a lot of those favor different streaming services. But the biggest thing to remember about all of these is that they're a tool, and the whole idea is to bring your video and your audio together in a way that makes it easy to stream out. Does that make sense?
There's that speed test again.
Yeah,
just a reminder if you don't have your internet connection.
By the way, wire your computer, not like I'm doing right now.
Yeah. So, no, that's all right, man. Ethan's like on fire back there with like bringing up the different links, and man, I got to give him a shout out. That's normally my job, and it's a lot of things. He's grabbing references to stuff we're talking about, throwing them up on the screen and whatnot. You mentioned StreamYard briefly. That is something that is really facilitated by the application that we're using, this web application called StreamYard, which is a pretty powerful thing. But there's any number of other pieces of software that do something like that. Now, say you don't want to like deal with the big gray screen that is OBS. We had a couple questions about multicamming into people's feeds. We can do that with software like OBS or something like that, but there's some hardware solutions for that I noticed on that wish list. Are you using? You said you had one of the Blackmagics in your studio there, didn't you, Ryan? Like next to you?
Yeah, let me go grab it, and Christian can talk about it. I'll be right back with it. Cool. I've actually got to get up to get this one.
There you go. Is that the Blackmagic ATEM? Probably. That's the one we see go out to a lot of people these days, and it's a simple device, a few buttons on there. I mean, they make them more complicated, of course. The more inputs or the more cameras you want to run, everything goes up in price and complexity, right? But if you're just doing a couple of cameras, the Blackmagic ATEM Mini is a great way to go. And there's also Roland and a few other ones, but like I said, the Blackmagic is kind of the ubiquitous. And really, you have your two cameras running in HDMI, and then it gives you a single point into your computer, and you can change. There you go, ATEM Mini, woo-woo! And you can change some scenes there. Queue up camera 1, queue up camera 2, and switch back and forth. Fairly seamless. And again, they have more behind the scenes than that. Don't want to bog you down with a bunch of details, but that is what we're seeing. That is kind of the ubiquitous. If you think of focus, right, goes out
smaller than I visualized.
Yes,
they're very small.
Yeah, and if it's right in front of your laptop. If you're doing if you're a solo person, one person show, great. Tap tap tap, whichever scene you want it to go, or whatever camera you're looking for. And I believe you can also set it up for automation, so that you can have a front camera and a side camera, or if you want to go crazy and have a robotic head controlled camera, you could do that too. But it gives you a lot of look for not a ton of money, and it'll uptick your game a little bit in the visual side.
So what we're talking about,
nice.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and again, I'm coming in after, so Christian may have already covered this. One of the things that the Blackmagics do is they take the processing of running all 4 cameras at once off board. So all of that's done in here rather than having your computer trying to process it, which video sucks a lot of power. And so every time you add another camera to your computer, however you're doing it, if there's things like the Cam Link, which we should talk about, that will hook cameras up to computers. But the nice thing about these is it takes all of your cameras and it turns it into one camera. And so that's really useful. Now, Blackmagic, they want you to play within the Blackmagic world. So they have really powerful, great software, but they really want you to use their software to do stuff, but not saying that you shouldn't, because it's very, very good way to go. Another thing, if you want to go multicam and you have the processing power to handle it, I will say that I've seen really good results, taking the HDMI out. Usually getting a clean HDMI out off a camera is the best way to go. And we'll talk probably more about that in a second. But you can also bring that into OBS or bring it into Ecamm. It's been mentioned in the comments, OBS is a is a resource hog without a doubt. And the more complicated you make it, the more it's going to suck on your CPU and drag everything down. Ecamm in the Mac world is lighter, and you can do pretty amazing things just hooking up cameras with USB connectors like this Elgato Camlink 4K, and then switching within the software itself. And there's also a nice thing called a Stream Deck that Elgato makes, that if you're using certain things, it creates buttons for you. It's a keyboard that changes the buttons on the keyboard. It's super fun. You'll impress all your friends. But it also makes a wonderful switcher.
Blinky lights. It's got blinky lights.
It's got the coolest blinky lights.
Well, how many blinky lights are we talking about?
Depends on which model you get.
Oh.
Ethan, bring up a Stream Deck, an Elgato Stream Deck, and show Rob the blinky lights.
This would be a good point to mention. bh@nerfa.org. Ethan Christian has mentioned that. Christian, I don't know what that is. You tell me.
Well, that is it's an email setup. There it is, right there in the corner. And
toys.
So you're talking toys. So if you have tech questions, everyone out there,
there the blinky lights are.
I told you got blinky lights. If you have
the
tech
blinky
questions,
lights are so cool. $150. You have so many blinky lights. I'm kidding.
How much is that? $150? That's
Let
crazy.
me moderate. Christian, please tell us about bh@nerfa.org.
BH Nerfa, yes. So that is a direct connect to me and to Ethan. And if you have any questions, technical or purchase-wise, whatever, you just want to know a little bit more about this gear, please hit us up with that. That's going to go to my direct email at B&H. And yeah, I'm happy to be your liaison for the B&H for a while. I'm hoping that you're going to send so many questions that I'm going to have to hire outside help. But if I don't know the answer, I'll either make it up and make it sound good, or probably more likely find someone who actually knows what they're talking about, because I'm a generalist and I may not know specifics. But yes, so please hit me up with all your tech questions. We want to make sure that we get you the proper gear that's fit for your requirements. Okay.
Let's step away from streaming for just a sec. And I think that a lot of people they go from streaming and they say, oh man, now I want to create this cool music video, or vice versa. They've got an audio studio. They've got a beautiful, I've been working with Charlie Pilzer in Tacoma Park, Grammy Award-winning studio, getting it to stream out with video and audio and stuff like that. That was a bit of a trick. And so they're not one and the same. If you are taking what you've been doing with streaming recently and you're sort of like, okay, now I want to do video editing or post mixing, what is my next direction for turning a streaming studio into an audio engineering studio?
Wow.
That's brilliant.
Okay.
Well,
that's heavy, man.
Can I back it up just for a second though and talk about?
Absolutely.
So you've got your studio at home. Because I think a lot of people, maybe not a lot, but maybe you have a studio at home. Maybe you've built out your audio studio like you're talking about, and now you've bought a camera and you're like, I want to go live, right? So maybe we should tackle that really quickly, we could go the other way. But I will say that you can incorporate a whole studio. You can incorporate your DAW and however you've been doing your own audio into your live stream. It's doable. It's hard, and it's funny because nobody ever made that wire in your computer that goes from your digital audio workstation to the live stream. Nobody made the connection, so you usually have to use a third-party piece of software at that point to get over that hump.
Before you go into where you're going, let's just describe what DAWs are, digital audio workstations are, for people who don't know what that is.
Yes.
Sure. A DAW is essentially what you use to record yourself, right? So essentially, like voice recorder on your iPhone is a DAW. In the simplest sense. But if you have a Mac and you've ever heard of GarageBand, that's probably one of the simplest things out there. But essentially it lets you record multiple tracks of audio. And so they're all of them have different features and different ways that it lets you do that. But what's good about, I mean, it's great for recording. If you've ever recorded an album, chances are you've used a DAW. Pro Tools is a DAW. GarageBand is a DAW. Logic is a DAW. Those are probably, Logic and Pro Tools kind of own the world at the moment. And mainly Pro Tools. Most major studios use Pro Tools still to this day, although Logic's going to give it a run for its money, it seems. And there's other people out there that like things that do other things. There's a great DAW if you have an older computer or you're getting into it. There's one called Reaper that is very light. It doesn't drag down your computer. But the reason I bring all this up is one thing that the DAW does is you can actually mix live audio in there, and most of them. GarageBand's not the best at it, but there are some others. Pro Tools or Logic work great. And so you can dial in your sound, and then you have studio quality sound because you're in your studio, and now you're streaming with that sound, usually using a third-party piece of software. So it is doable is all I wanted to get at.
Yeah, and I think you were one of the directions you were almost going into was like voice meter and things like that, and like basically getting from your DAW into your streaming output.
Absolutely, yeah. If you're Windows, typically there's not a lot of options out there, but if you're Windows, typically voice meter, they make a plethora of products for this. They also make mixers that sort of let you bypass your DAW if you want. Rob, I know you have more experience directly with that and can
throwing up actually
else.
On the software sometimes.
Yes.
But actually, one of the things they do long before they get to their mixers is they make something called a virtual cable, and I think you have more trouble finding that for the Mac side of things. But like the term of a virtual cable of literally like, I don't know, figuratively, I guess, actually, running something from the output of one piece of software into the input of another piece of software is like stupid powerful. Where else were you going with that into their mixes, bananas and potatoes and whatever else?
Right. I mean, that's the voice meter side, and they do have mixers that incorporate their virtual on. So to get from your recording your DAW to your stream on a Mac, typically you need another piece of software because the voice meter doesn't make a product for Mac. And most people will use Loopback. It's a great program. It's $100, but it's worth it because it's the only one for Mac that's stable. There are other options. Black Hole is very popular and it's simple. There's also iShowU and there's sort of like free versions of Soundflower out there. These are all programs that are essentially just virtual wires to get your sound from your DAW, so like from Logic or from Pro Tools over to OBS so you can get it out, or simply over to YouTube Studio or Facebook so you can get it out live to the rest of the world. And the nice thing about especially Loopback is it's super simple. Once you get into it, it all makes sense.
We did briefly have a conversation before the program about things like platforms like Apple versus PC and stuff like that. And so, Dougie, you're saying, is Apple the enemy here? It's not really that. Certainly, Apple and PC nowadays are very equivalent, even in the arts fields where people long felt that Windows was behind it all. Apple's more locked down. And so, therefore, there simply isn't as much third-party innovation. It can't turn as fast. So I think that at the moment, and feel free to correct me, but my impression is that with the needs of streaming, all of a sudden people really had to do that, spit, duct tape, and chicken wire approach to things. And that's much easier on a platform that's not locked down as heavily as Macintosh is locked down. So it's not like we're ripping on Apple because the machines are powerful, and if nothing else, oh my God, the visual aesthetic is beautiful. But by the time you put all the dongles and third-party software on there to figure out your way past what they want you to do with it, it can get pretty ugly pretty fast. Whether just for streaming or whatever else. Go ahead, Ryan.
I'll just stick up for the Apple peeps here. I'm an Apple guy. I'm running on Apple currently, and I love my MacBook. It does almost everything I've ever could dream. It's got plenty of power, but it is a little bit more locked down. It is it's because of that it can be more stable. So, there are trade-offs between the two. Christian can probably talk to this more, but there's no hate against Apple as far as that goes. It works really well. And, they've also come a long way in recent times because of the gaming community and sort of their graphics cards and what those processors will support, because that actually does make a difference actually in how your streaming software works, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it does. You want so, and Christian, maybe you could talk to that too, but it's like, you not only do you want to make sure your CPU is good, but your GPU needs to be good too. And that's the processor on your graphics card. Actually, we should cover that really quickly. Christian, do you want to talk about that, why that's important?
Well, sure. And I'll start off by saying, between Mac and PC, it's kind of same meat, different gravy. And really, if you're already in with one, you don't necessarily have to dump it, go get the other. Not never, but it's not 100% necessary. And for people who are maybe just starting their streaming adventure, definitely don't replace your computer unless it's ancient and you really, really, really can't, get what you need out of it right now. Of course, when you are ready for a new computer, I know a couple places you can come to, but
might be one.
I could think of one. I'm not gonna lie. We're talking about your GPU. Yeah, a lot of software is written now to take advantage of the power that is on your graphics card, and especially in non-graphic intensive environments, it's power that wasn't being tapped before, and so. I think that's kind of it in a nutshell. A lot of software writers are making sure that we can squeeze out every little bit of extra horsepower from your machine. So yeah, GPUs are important. And if you're building your own gaming computer or taking over someone's old gaming computer and they've stripped that video card out, yes, definitely invest some money into it, almost as much as into your video card these days. And it will help you in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, OBS is using it. So if you're doing any sort of a screen capture, or, if you're doing any sort of a camera capture, it's running through the GPU often. And so you don't want to not have a computer that can handle that. So it's something to keep an eye out for if you've never heard of it before. Just, it's power to consider when you're looking at how you're going to do this.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense.
Hey, Rob, people have it. I'm going to moderate for a second.
Go ahead.
People keep asking about your rig, because you look the best of all three of us without a doubt. So what are you using currently right now?
It's funny. I'm scrolling through this and I'm grabbing some things. About me.
Yeah.
So I'm using for my camera a Canon EOS M50 Mark II, and the second one that just came out in December has a clean HDMI output, and that made a real difference for me in what I wanted to be able to do with high def streaming specifically. That's running into a relatively generic. Where's my little? What's this thing here?
That was a good jam. I like that.
This is tied down more than it ought to be, but just a little generic USB video, HDMI video capture card. And there's my Scarlett sitting down there. I like how this webcam apparently wants to tell me which direction I'm headed. My desktop is just craziness here. And that's sort of the real meat and also gravy of what I'm using. The audio side of things, this is an AE 5100 Audio-Technica microphone, and I'd been moving back and forth because I do a lot of... I want to have like that bass response. I do a lot of beatboxing and things like that. And then because absolute overkill, because I'm doing a lot of webcasting with music and things like that, this is a QSC TM16 that I'm running through analog, because the TM16 does not operate as an interface. Man, I got to take that and run it through a Focusrite, because that's just silly. We're taking all this digital equipment, and then I've got to go through an analog cable to my Focusrite. But it works. and that allows me to throw in all my effects and stuff like that if I felt it necessary. But the EOS M50 is something that I upgraded to in December, like I said, when the clean output came out, because what I'd been working with for a while, I don't think I've got one on hand, were these 12-year-old EOS 5D Mark IIs, and there's me. And I hacked the firmware with the 5Ds so that you could get clean HDMI outputs, but they were a little kludgy, and they'd shut off every once in a while, or jack, they'd sort of jack up a little, just freeze up every once in a while, because I do like making things more complicated. And so therefore I was doing this thing where it's like, okay, here's one HDMI input, here's a USB input, here's a webcam, and combining them all in OBS, porting that out to a tablet running an OBS controller. So very carefully switching that with my toe, because no one should really be stepping on their tablets, but I do. And stuff like that, making it up as I go along. I've literally just been making it up as I've been going along since March. But that's what I'm using right now. Did that answer those questions? Yeah. Sort of like babbling. Yeah, and it's Ryan, you should definitely jump in and moderate here and there, because, man, this is just not my forte. I'm like, what's going on here?
No, it's your forte. Come on.
Somebody's thrown it in the comments. The Canon EOS 5D Mark II is the old camera. Audra Hale's got it. The Canon EOS M50 Mark II is what I'm using there.
It's awesome.
Sorry. And somebody asked about depth of field. I'm using a very f2, like a very, I guess that's a very wide aperture. You're for that very tight depth of field.
Yeah, you're all up over it right now. It looks amazing. I mean, your beard is powerful anyway. It always has been, but I mean, it's just it's just
I forgot my
it's
beard.
Just spectacular. But
it's alarming, to say the least. I think we are kind of reaching the point where we probably should just be going through questions and seeing that. I don't know that we've really reached the Q&A section, but I'm going to declare it the Q&A section.
Rob, I do want to interject real fast. You had mentioned that you were using did you just say you were using an iPad to switch cameras with your toe? Was that what was the what was happening there?
I love it.
I can't reach that. It's an old Samsung A series tablet and an application called OBS Controller. And what's nice about it is
that's awesome.
It's big buttons, and I was switching through it, and that combined with OBS's automatic switching. So I can set that up so that, say, after 90 seconds, it'll go back to my main camera. But if I want to talk for a sec, I would click that with my toe. It's on my face for a little bit, and then 90 seconds later, I'll switch back to whatever else or cycle through the other cameras. I've decided that the holy grail of all of this is actually simplicity. So backing off of all that experimenting, I've really enjoyed learning that stuff, but it definitely takes away from your ability to just sit there and perform. And there's a lot to be said for just a single good-looking camera and audio.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt. It's tempting to be like, man, I need 12 cameras, because I want to keep it interesting for the audience. But if you can't perform well, then you're not keeping it interesting for the audience. So it's always, always make sure that the content is there before the production, right? But the one thing I did want to mention is there are a lot of foot switches out there that you can integrate with things, and you don't have to necessarily use a tablet. Although that program is great and offers a lot of stuff that you couldn't get with a foot switch. But I'm a big fan of there's a $40 foot switch out there that you can find on the interwebs that you have to configure with Windows, but it'll let you do it's essentially keystrokes. And another good hack is that you can take an old keyboard and pop off all the keys, and then just leave a couple of keys spaced out for between where you would usually have for a foot switch. And then in OBS, you could dedicate your camera switching to just any key on the keyboard. So you can use that to switch cameras. If you're switching cameras within something like OBS with a foot switch, and I'm sure at B&H, we didn't look up foot switches ahead of time, but I know that there's the air turn people. Do you guys carry those? I wonder. Air turn I know can work really well for this too.
I bet Ethan knows. Ethan knows everything.
Cool. Yeah, I've been searching for something like that myself, so I would like to know. Jen, with my camera software, so there's a reason that I'm going with the HDMI out of the Canon right now, and that is because it is smoother and it's higher definition. The software, the Canon USB webcam utility, EOS webcam utility, I haven't had many issues with that freezing. If it's not recognizing it at all, make sure that you've got the newest version of the software, because I feel like when this camera came out in December, they dropped a new version of the software, and I want one of those.
Right.
And that allowed it to recognize the newest cameras, which includes the M50 and the 7D Mark II. So that might be the beginning point. The other thing that can happen that can undermine a lot of these things is check your actual USB cables. If you're having issues with something like that, swap the cable out. It's the cheapest solution. And man, there can be a whole lot of problems that happen right there.
That's true. And also check your firmware on the camera while you're checking things. That's another option.
Absolutely. And it's worth mentioning that a lot of people will take a clean HDMI out over a USB connection all day just because there's less to worry about. Usually it's higher definition. Things like the Elgato Cam Link, which are, you're going to have HDMI on one side, USB on the other. This can, you can use any output. Most cameras, most DSLRs, most mirrorless cameras have an HDMI out. Many of them have a way to get it clean. If there isn't a way to get it clean, you can crop the image itself in OBS or whatever software you're using, Ecamm. You can kind of zoom around the stuff that's on the screen. You're going to lose resolution, but it might be more stable. That's the problem with the USB. I can say I virtually engineer a bunch of events, and that's like a whole nother thing where I team viewer into somebody's computer and switch their cameras for them. And one that I do every week is Greg Koch out in Milwaukee, and I literally go into his computer and I run his whole deal. And I will say that we had a Sony, and just today I finally got the HDMI to be clean and right. It was something to do with the way that the USB was hooked up and what it was doing to the whole system. So sometimes you're better off just using that HDMI out into an adapter. Again, the Elgato is really great. Some of the cheap ones out there work really well. They seem to be inconsistent. There's Chinese ones you can get for like $10, but they're I
just returned 4 of them.
Yeah.
There's that.
It's at Fishman, we got a couple that were great, and then I tried to do the same trick again, and it didn't work. But the Elgato, it's like, oh, these are awesome. Let's order some more, and it's like, no, they're not awesome. So.
There are cheaper versions of almost everything, and I have long been a proponent of I can buy this a little bit cheaper, by buying off brand and whatnot. And streaming, there are so many idiosyncrasies and little random gotchas and strange things that has definitely been the thing that has proven to me I spend a little bit more to buy something that's trusted and proven. And it's one of the most frustrating things about our world right now is that we no longer have a absolute brand new entry tier. I do a lot of work with open mics and I do a lot of work with accessibility, and there is no longer the option for someone who just doesn't have a couple $100s to spend. I mean, $400 to $500 maybe as a starting point, at least, plus a decent audio program. You are no longer in our current music scene, and I'm hoping that changes soon. But that is one of the reasons why this conversation is important, because there's tiers to this.
Right.
There's only so low it can go, but finding a way that you can take the things that you've already got in front of you is almost key, I think, especially for people who just don't have the paychecks. Don't go with cheap interface. We had one die right at the beginning of a streaming concert and had to postpone to the following week. I concur. No. I love my Scarlett. I have dropped my Scarlett. I've beaten my Scarlett. I mean, I would never beat my Scarlett, but it's a beautiful sounding. It's even a beautiful sounding preamp. I really like it a lot. It's sturdy.
I will say that I went through a couple of different companies' shootouts of all of their kind of 2-input, and they're out there on the web. You can find them everywhere. People do YouTube videos where they shoot out all these interfaces. And when you get in that $400 range, like the Scarlett or those things, most of them are pretty similar. I mean, obviously, don't buy something that's too good to be true. If it's too good to be true, it usually is, right? Don't get it on Wish. It's probably not going to work. But although there's good things on Wish, but nonetheless.
What did you like? Just
Scarlett,
listening to, was there a favorite?
I couldn't tell. They were so close, Rob, was really what I was getting at, is that, the Focusrite, the PreSonus, they were all in that same ballpark. Universal Audio makes some amazing stuff. It's usually more expensive. It has the advantage of doing the processing off board, so it saves your precious processor space. And so it's something that's worth checking out. But I will say that the Focusrite Scarlett, it's the SM58 of this mic of the interface world, right? It's ubiquitous. It's taken over. It's everywhere, and it works. It will just work to get you going, to get your audio into your computer. So that's certainly worth considering. And Joe Crookston reminding us that it was founded by Rupert Neve. So if it was Rupert Neve, it has to be good. So it probably,
I think of myself as pretty nerdy, and then you're just like blah 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 blah, and I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah, I need to shut up.
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. You're giving me so much stuff for me to look up. I'm just looking through some things.
I like that analogy of it being the SM58 of interfaces. By the way, that's a good one. I'm gonna have to steal that.
Except it's red. It's beautiful,
well,
but it's red.
If it's red,
it means it goes faster.
Red's a good thing. That's true.
So somebody's chiming in here that they love the Reaper DAW. It's $60 and have a lot of the same features as Pro Tools, and that's certainly true. And there's great videos on how to use it. I was working with JD Simo, who is he's a great blues guitar player in Nashville, and he's doing some streams on a site that I work with a lot. And he had an older Mac and a bad internet connection, and so you're immediately kind of working against these things to make them sound good. But he went to Reaper and his whole thing was he wanted to use his plugins. And for those of you that don't know, a plugin is sort of an effect you can just throw on any audio source that's coming into your DAW, to your digital audio workstation, and so it's like an effects box for you guitar players. It's like it's another tube screamer, right? It's you throw the plugin in, but the plugin can do anything. It can be delays, it can be rooms, it can be all kinds of EQs and different things. JD wanted to use specific plugins for his vocal because it makes it sound like an old school microphone. And he couldn't run Pro Tools and OBS at the same time. They're both resource hogs. Both of those programs were just killing his Mac. And so, but he could make OBS run, he could make Pro Tools run, but not both at the same time. So he went to Reaper, and lo and behold, everything worked. The cool thing about Reaper is it tells you everything you do. It tells you how much processor you're using. So if you add a plugin, there's a percentage at the bottom that'll tell you how much closer you are to the edge. And so it builds up that way. So it is a pretty cool, compelling DAW. Although I also work in Logic a lot, and I find Logic to be very logical, and so I tend to lean on that one too. But anyhow. I digress with my nerddom.
I've been meaning to experiment with Reaper. We obviously synced into our Q&A. If you do have questions, go ahead and throw them in the comments. Also, I do want to make sure that people are aware that there is a video. Speaking of all this video good stuff, you've learned everything there is to learn during this very evening. And now you're going to put it into play, right? And within the next 3 days, because January 31st is the deadline for Nerf a Spotlight. It's a contest they've got coming up, and I believe the prize is $250 from B&H Auto, right? B&H Video.
Yeah, B&H Video.
I don't. I've got a truck place down the way. It's like B&H Auto. So I'm sorry that keeps coming.
I thought you said audio because we also do audio. So
yeah.
I figure that's. I'm gonna say I heard
Video. So that's a cool thing. Ethan, you want to
Plugins
take
at
a
work.
sec to throw that back up? That's not a plugin. That is part of my. Well, it's a digital mixer. It probably is a plugin.
It's a plugin.
Actually,
I mean, it's not.
Holy crap. Okay, we're back from our Nerfer rave. I love that little audio pan that happens right at the beginning of. There's like a little guitar thing that over from the left to the right. Wow. Okay. I did ask for it. There was no one to blame. There was no one to blame but myself. And I apologize to any of you who were like on the edge of your seat wondering what they were going to say next, and you turned everything up because you wanted to hear. There you go. And then it was Nerfa. DaVinci Resolve for video is a recommendation from Dan Tappan. We do have a couple people who are asking, but what about creating home videos and also into video editing? These cameras, a lot of the cameras that we're talking about, and even webcams and things like that, if you're giving them enough light, can create really nice, beautiful visuals. Our phones can create nice visuals. What do we do when we want to stitch all that together? Not necessarily live, but in post.
Yeah. Hire somebody.
Hire whoever made that wonderful video for Nerfa. Add in the and you're good to go. I mean, Ryan, do you have any other suggestions?
Well, in the Apple world, Nerfa rave, Hinkal. Oh, jeez. In the Apple world, iMovie is really powerful and good, and probably the simplest video editing software that you can use. On a day-to-day basis, producing videos for Fishman, I use Premiere, Adobe Premiere. It's excellent, and that's probably the industry standard at the moment. But iMovie will do a lot, and you can. And then again, Dan put it in here. DaVinci Resolve is, I believe, it's free, and it's scarily powerful. So it's if you don't want to get into something that's expensive, DaVinci Resolve is a good way to check it out. Anything more, Christian or Rob?
Just a matter of don't chase the features. Find something that's going to fit for your needs when you need them now. If you're the first time video editor, do not go buy Premiere necessarily unless it's part of your Adobe suite already. Kind of use what you have to begin with and really find out if that's something you want to put the time and energy, because video is a whole nother potential nightmare. If you're already up there, though, you already have those skills and you have the computer that can handle it, then great, lots of options for you. But you're going to want to consider hard drive space and that, your GPU, back to that again, and how old is your computer versus the software you're trying to use. So like I said, don't go overboard just because it's out there right now. Definitely go within your means, budget, as well as knowledge base, right?
There are a lot of considerations when you start getting into local or getting into your video editing. And you're right about the storage space, if nothing else. I mean, we're all buying these fast SSDs and things like that with 250 gigabytes of space, and you'll fill that in one project.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't even talk to me about cloud backups.
That can be problematic. Yeah. lots of hard drives. You're going to want to have a ton of hard drives, and depending on how much you love your data, you're going to want to have redundancy somewhere. And that means more than one hard drive right on your desk. And that could also mean, if that's your whole baby, if that's your moneymaker, then you're going to want to have yet another copy, either cloud we won't talk about, or physical storage somewhere offsite as well. So consider an inexpensive RAID. They are actually fairly inexpensive now. You don't have to spend an arm and a leg to get. I mean, clearly the more space you have, the better. But the more drive, there you go. Let's see, can't go wrong there. 16 terabytes.
Jeez, a flip. And one of the nice things about
terabyte was large.
Yeah,
Sorry.
really. Even one of the nice things about even little things like this little Samsung SSD.
Yes.
It's only what, a 2 terabyte drive, I think. But this is enough to do a video project on, and it's a solid state drive, which means it's probably faster than a lot of our hard drives. And so there's ways that you can maximize hardware that you do have by maybe just operating off of that, putting all your scratch drives for your Adobe Premiere project or whatever onto the Samsung. Yeah, I know this is just a T3. And I feel like there was something else that I was going to mention about that. Working with proxies and things like that. This software is built around the idea that, holy crap, I'm going to ask your computer to do hard things, and there's a lot of things. Read your manual about how to deal with that. General external hard drive recommendations. I don't have any actually. Does BH Video have any specific hard drive?
Why?
That RAID that came up. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, the RAID came up. Yeah, exactly. So something like this, a Samsung 2 terabyte is a great scratch drive or working drive. You don't want to necessarily keep it as your permanent storage unless you want to buy lots of them, which I've done on the smaller scale. You may want to get a RAID like the LaCie that Ethan popped up there, something like that. It's a dual drive, or you can get more than two, and that's going to have a redundancy to it or a speed advantage, or both, depending on how you configure it. Again, kind of depends on how critical are these files. If this is your life, consider it being, pretty critical. You don't want that finely polished song to go up in smoke because your hard drive failed in the middle of, processing. So,
or even worse, someone else's highly polished song.
Or someone else. Yeah. Yes, that's good. So yeah, RAID drive is a good option. 2 drives, you can make them redundant. You can make them striped so that they split the workload, and it's a little bit faster. Great for when you're pulling a lot of data, your samples or whatever, if you're that kind of musician. More drives, you can get both. You can have 2 sets of 2 that are striped and also redundant, so that you have backup built-in redundancy in case you get a corrupted drive in the middle of operations. You're not completely out of whack, And then some people go to the extra step, and most people should, myself included, have a spare one of these. Buy 2. Why buy 1 at full price when you can buy 2 at twice the price? But at least it's your data can be offsite as well. So a loved one, one in your studio, one in your home, kind of thing. If they're separate areas. A lot of people, especially out here in California and Oregon, right, had a whole slew of problematic fires. And if that's everything that you own in that fire, that's a tough one to recover from. So cloud-based is good. It can follow you anywhere, but it's kind of slow and clunky, and there's a cost to that as well. Or another physical hard drive somewhere in another state, for instance, that is a working backup. And there's software that'll help you do that, and there's management software that'll keep everything kind of organized somewhat for you. But yeah, that's options, and it all depends on your requirements. There you go. Google Drive, Dropbox, or Cloud.
But then pause all of those when you go to stream.
Yeah. Don't do it live.
Yeah,
your internet will not like you.
Yeah, that's another. Here's a quick streaming tip. If you have a computer that you're using to stream, make a separate profile for your stream that doesn't automatically start up a billion programs when you go to turn on your computer. So that way you have you're running bare bones, because again, streaming is very taxing. So as long as we're talking about that, I think that helps a lot. It's this easy thing that you can do, just make another user, call it, streaming profile, and use that when you go to do this stuff. It'll help you.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Just to give you some love, by the way, Jeremy Aaron, who I was admiring the hair of intensely earlier, he effing loves B&H. So,
thank you. Huzzah. And we love you, man.
There we go. Good answer.
I haven't seen your hair though, but I've heard it's magical.
I'm seeing that icon come up, and I was just like, nice, very nice. Oh yeah, look at that. Let's just admire that for a sec.
Jeremy rocks. Love it.
Yeah, man.
Well, I think we're probably reaching. I mean, we could talk about this beyond all night, but all day. I'm not quite sure who of us has willingly put out our contact information for people to bug later. I know that bh@iliami.com, that's my website, and I'm easily contacted off that. I'm rob@iliami.com. It's simple. Fitzsimmons, we got a website coming up for you, right? Oh, okay, we do that.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to Ryan at ryanfitzsimmons.com, I'll probably never get back to you, but it'll come up that way. If you hit me up through Facebook, you can find me. That's an easy way to find me. There's, I also have all, Discord and all of those other places you can find me. But just hit me up through Facebook or send an email at Ryan at ryanfitzsimmons.com. You could also do ryanfitzsimmons@rumbox.com. And that's how you'd find me. But yeah, super happy to help you out if there's anything I can do.
And then I guess we should mention that next week we've got Christian, yeah. Where do we hunt you down? That's the
easiest thing is the bh@nerfa.org.
Yep, absolutely.
It's just going to get right to me. And you're not going to find me on Discord and Twitch and all these other ones at all. I'm very anti-social media. Don't kid.
We've heard that about you. Yeah.
But hit me up with questions. There, no such thing as too small or too many. I really want to know what you guys are coming up against and what's your next step. And that's what I'm here for, is to help out. So.
And I think something to stress that actually will fold in nicely with next week a mental health program with nerfa.org is this is hard. This is legitimately like, whoa, really? Horoscopes?
Horoscopes.
It's all right. This is legitimately hard. This is something that none of our gear was designed to do a year ago. None of this was something that people dreamed of not too long ago. So, ask questions and reach out to your community and plumb through these comments. We're all interested in the same stuff right now. It's really, really important. NERF is doing a lot of great stuff with that, with whether their mental health connection next week or their presenters peer group, their performers peer group. All these things are designed to bring people together. And if you haven't been in a room of fellow creatives recently, there's something about the juice flow that goes along with, just all of us being together and being able to talk to each other. It's really more important than you think. The Spotlight video contest deadline is Sunday, or I think maybe February 1st. If you can clarify that for me, that'd be great. But that looks like a really, really cool thing as well. And nerfa.org is just where you're going to find a lot of information about all of this stuff now. So I think that's in danger of wrapping us up. You think?
No more last questions? No last questions? Come on.
I don't know. Agreeing, it's really challenging to self-produce live streams. There's agreements. I like that.
Sunday cough.
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
Sunday.
Well, you said January 31st, which was Sunday, and then you were like February, and then I was like, that's not Sunday. Anyways, it's neither here nor there. So, yeah, well, I'm not seeing questions. I'm not seeing too many questions right now. Will this remain on your YouTube channel for viewing? Yes, I believe that is the case. That this will be all of these things have been up there and staying and being archived up there. So far people are mostly just agreeing with us, and we like that. What's the lens that's on there now? This is a Canon 40 millimeter. And the main thing, the reason I've got a prime 40 millimeter lens sitting on there is just because it's got a very, very wide aperture that lets in a lot of light because I like to film in the dark. Did we already talk about the sound on StreamYard versus Zoom? We did. I don't know if we specified that, but we did mention about how StreamYard is, they're sort of different entities. StreamYard is outputting to a lot of other platforms, and so therefore StreamYard is sort of at the mercy of where it's going out to, whether it's Twitch or Facebook or YouTube or whatever else you put it out to. And so therefore it's generally going to be damped down to 128 kbps stereo or 1080 video. Zoom, the video is going to be lower quality, but the audio can be a little bit higher quality depending specifically on your internet speeds. But I think it goes up to like 192 or something like that. And the video generally, you can only get 1080 by being of a specific corporate level. I don't know if you want to go deeper than that.
I think some platforms are branching out and will have some audio specific options one can purchase if you're doing this. So like the Zoom basic platform is really not great for doing music performances because it flattens everything to a mono signal and et cetera, et cetera. There's other issues to that. So I believe you have to look around before you make your final purchase decision on the Zoom or another platform, but they have different tiers that are available. So look into that.
Yeah, I should mention that I'm only really talking about their professional tiers. They're free ones. Everyone has these free programs, and they dumb down certain things in surprising ways, and you almost can't compare them unless you actually buy into it, I think.
Copy that.
The beatboxing.
Let's see what this is
strong.
It is.
Sorry, it's the way I think. I just discovered my loop station the other night too. This is really problematic. Yeah, but I think I'm going to echo Dougie's sentiment and say peace out, y'all. You guys are the best. No, thank you, Ethan. Thank you so much for running things behind the scenes.
Thank you, Ethan.
Thanks,
At this point, I think we're just waiting for you to press that red button. But thank you, Ethan. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Christian. My name is Rob Hinkal. Thank you, nerfa.org and nerfa365 for having this. And thanks for being part of a really important conversation. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks, you guys. Take